Good evening. I'm State Representative Nicole Collier, Chairwoman of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus and a proud Annie's List champion. I'm excited to kick off this Juneteenth with an intimate conversation in the home of social impact leader, Ms. Opal Lee, also known as the grandmother of Juneteenth, right here in Fort Worth, Texas. Juneteenth is a celebration of freedom, emancipation, and liberty. As we celebrate this momentous occasion, it's important that we honor those who labored tirelessly for the rights that we enjoy today by continuing the fight for freedom. This legislative session, I, along with my Legislative Black Caucus colleagues, stood strong against Republicans as they launched an attack on our voting rights with Senate Bill 7. Voter suppression is real, and Republicans will stop at nothing to stifle our sacred right to cast our ballot. When I spoke out against Republican attempts to limit our right to vote, my Republican counterparts attempted to silence me, not once, but twice. Let me be clear, we will not and cannot be silenced. I'm in this fight till the end, but I can't do it alone. I invite you to join me in the fight for freedom by engaging with your representatives, investing into local and state elections, supporting groups like Annie's List who are working to elevate our voices and taking back the majority by running for elected office. There is power in numbers, and we need more women to lean into leadership positions. The fight for freedom begins with you. You know, one of my favorite quotes from Miss Opal Lee is a quote inspired by the late Nelson Mandela. She said, "People have been taught to hate, and if people have been taught to hate, they can be taught to love." So thank you for tuning in, and with love, I hope you enjoy this very special conversation with Miss Opal Lee.
Hey y'all, thanks for joining us today. I'm Royce, the Executive Director of Annie's List. I'm excited to be here virtually with all of you and really looking forward to talking with our special guests, Ms. Opal Lee, and Vice Chair of our State Democratic Party, Dr. Carla Braley. But first, and for those who may be new, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Annie's List and the work we do. Since our founding, Annie's List has elected more than 160 progressive women all across Texas, trained thousands more, and invested over $20 million to build women's political power. Throughout a global pandemic, Annie's List has continued to grow and to adapt. Last cycle, we re-elected 24 legislative incumbents, trained over 450 future candidates and campaign staff, and more than 1,800 people tuned into our virtual conversation series and events, none of which was possible without your dedication and belief in Annie's List. That's why I'm so grateful to all of you for joining us today, and especially to our host committee, whose support will allow us to continue to build on our successes in 2021 and beyond. We all know how vital this work is, and we can clearly see how our communities are made better when women leaders are at the table. And with every election, we're getting closer to a blue Texas and to reaching gender parity in our state legislature and in local offices across the state. Here with me to discuss the highs and the lows in a long-standing fight, I'm thrilled to be joined by Ms. Opal Lee and Dr. Carla Braley. An outstanding visionary and innovator, Dr. Carla Braley has played a pivotal role in establishing the framework and foundation for long-term success in educational institutions, nonprofit organizations, and government agencies. She currently serves as Vice Chair of the Texas Democratic Party and an Assistant Professor of Sociology at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. Dr. Braley's commitment to ongoing learning and professional development is reflected in her well-rounded education and academic training. She holds a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Texas State University and several degrees from Howard University. Dr. Braley is passionate about social justice, diversity and inclusion, and the empowerment of Black women. She believes that when women lead, we must intentionally and unapologetically bring others with us. Ms. Opal Lee is a 94-year-old activist and lifelong Texan who has fought and campaigned to make Juneteenth a national holiday. Growing up, Ms. Opal Lee's family lived in a predominantly white neighborhood in Fort Worth. When she was 12, a mob of 500 white supremacists set fire to her home and vandalized it. It was destroyed and 0 arrests were made. Experiencing that hate crime pushed her into teaching, activism, and campaigning. In 2016, she decided to walk from her home here in Fort Worth to Washington, D.C. in an effort to get Juneteenth named a national holiday. She's considered by many to be the grandmother of Juneteenth and has been devoted to preserving the history and timeline of the emancipation of Texas slaves, which occurred 2.5 years after Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. We're so honored to be joined by her today and to speak with her directly about her powerful legacy. Thank you both so much for being with us. And thank you, Ms. Opal, for having us in your lovely home. I'm so excited to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well, and thank you, young people, for being here. I'm just overwhelmed.
Well, we are so excited. And Ms. Opal, many people know you as the grandmother of Juneteenth. You are a well-respected social impact leader, social justice leader. I've lived a bunch of places around the country, and everywhere I've been, I've seen Black people just really excited about the community and the celebration of Juneteenth. But we know Juneteenth was born right here in Texas. Can you tell us about your legacy and why you've labored for decades to make Juneteenth a national holiday?
Well, we see Juneteenth as a bridge to freedom. I really say that we should celebrate from the 19th of June to the 4th of July, because we weren't free on July 4th, 1776. And people need to know that it's not a Texas thing and it's not a Black thing, that freedom is for all. And we're saying that Juneteenth is the bridge to get us to understand that freedom is for everybody.
Freedom is for everybody.
Yes.
That's so powerful.
And we're not all free yet. There are so many disparities that need to be addressed, and we ought to all address them together, and we could get so many more things done. I think of our schools, if they would simply let the textbooks tell of what actually went on, so that people can make a decision for themselves, not to gloss it over. And I think about joblessness and jobs where people aren't paid the same for the same job. That needs to be addressed. Homelessness, oh, I fret so about homelessness. My first love is housing. And everybody needs a decent place to stay. Everybody. Our healthcare system needs to be tweaked. Some people get decent health care and some don't, and it shouldn't be like that. Climate change, I fear if we don't do something about climate change, we're all going to be annihilated at the same time. We've got to address these disparities, and we can do it together to make America the very best in the whole wide world.
Ms. Opal, that is powerfully put, and you have addressed so many of the issues that Annie's List and our candidates and elected champions fight for every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of weeks ago, we saw the end of the regular legislative session down in Austin at the state capitol, and we saw one of the most appalling assaults on the rights of Texans and the rights of Texas women by Republicans in years. From passing an abortion ban after 6 weeks of pregnancy to SB 7, a bill aimed at suppressing our votes. You've said time and again, you said just now, Juneteenth is a celebration of freedom. It's a bridge to freedom. Throughout your lifetime, you've seen history unfold in a number of ways. Could you share with us some other moments when we've seen similar attacks on our rights?
Well, it happened to my family. Back in 1939, my parents bought a house in, let's see, it was, would you believe, Annie and New York Street on the south side?
I know right where that is.
Okay. And my mom had it fixed up so nice. But on the very 19th day of June, some 500 people gathered. The paper said that the police couldn't control the mob. When my dad came home with a gun, the police told him, if you bust a cap, we'll let the mob have you. So our parents sent the three of us to friends several blocks away on Terrell Avenue. And they left under cover of darkness, but they'd already started throwing things and beginning to pull things out of the house, and they just destroyed it. Would you know, I've tried to find the owner of that lot. I'd like to put another house there. I'd like the people in the neighborhood to know if we had been allowed to stay, that they would have found out that we wanted the same things they did. Just a decent place to stay, just a job so my father could feed his family, just so we could go to school, even though it was segregated. And we went to Gwen. I don't know where they went, really. But we didn't have a chance. But in this day and time, that's not the only issue that we should be about eradicating. And I'm wanting people to know that Juneteenth's more than a festival, that there are so many components. There's the music and the art, and the young people were given 12 freedoms gained when the enslaved were free, and they were able to marry, name themselves, keep their children. They were able to work in the legislature, buy property, and those young people, 800 of them drew things relating to what they had been given. And 300 of them were juried. Oh, it was such a beautiful sight. So we'll have art with this Juneteenth session, and we'll have a caravan. Usually we have a parade, and we have a fine parade. But last year, because of the virus, we had a caravan. I walked 2.5 miles from the convention center downtown to Will Rogers Coliseum, Will Rogers Complex it is. I thought we'd have 10, 15 cars follow me. There were 300 cars. And so we're going to have a caravan again, but this time it's going to be national. If we start at 10 here in Fort Worth, in LA, they'll start at 8 with their caravan. And in Atlanta, it'll probably be 9. And in Philadelphia, 11. But it'll be broadcast all over the United States. I don't know how to act. I really don't.
Oh, that's so exciting. What a beautiful way of celebrating.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
But there's so many other parts to Juneteenth. There's empowering you, where people learn where they can get money to buy houses, where their credit can be repaired. There's health components. There's so many things in the empowering you portion of our Juneteenth. And did you know there's a Miss Juneteenth pageant and there's a Miss Juneteenth movie, and I'm in the movie. I guarantee you I'm not Miss Juneteenth, but I'm in the movie.
I did know about the movie, but I haven't yet seen it,
Oh.
which is my omission. And so I didn't know you were in the movie.
I'm in the movie for about 3 seconds, but I'm in the movie.
Well, look, I think you might be Miss Juneteenth.
No, we even have a play. A young man named Greg Ellis used to be a cowboy. I guess he's retired. He wrote a play about Juneteenth, and it's powerful too. It really is. There's so many components, and people need to know that Juneteenth's just not a festival, that it is a bridge to bring us over. And none of us, I repeat, none of us are free till we're all free.
I love that. And Carla, I've been asking all the questions. What do you have for Ms. Opal?
Well, because of time, I'll restrict the number of questions, but just such a marvelous thing. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this. You've been fighting the good fight for freedom for a long time. When you visited our nation's capital to reintroduce the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, you said, "I refuse to let the efforts we've made die on the vine." For all those tuned in, what can we do to ensure that the efforts we've made and you've made do not die on the vine?
We carried 1,500,000 signatures to Congress, and we're going to take another 1,500,000 this Juneteenth. What we need our audience to know is that they can participate by going to opalswalk2dc.com, find the link, and give us your signature so that we'll have another 1.5 million signatures to take to Congress. Oh, I am so delighted that people are beginning to wake up. They're beginning to take notice. And I know it's because we lost those young people who were killed. I know people are beginning to say enough is enough, and we need to be about the business of healing. And I have a sense that people are fearful that the atrocities that happened to the enslaved will happen to them. But as Christians, we've been taught vengeance is not ours. And so we are not seeking vengeance. We're seeking housing. We're seeking health. We're seeking jobs. These are the things we need, and vengeance is not part of it.
One of the narratives that I feel people are always pushing in Texas politics is the idea that we're on the cusp of a brand new Texas. That just 5 minutes from now, there will be enough Black people or brown people or young people that Texas will finally start to change in politics. It's a nice story, but we know your story. We know your legacy. So we know that that story is not quite right. It's actually wrong. All of us here know the truth is Texas has always been a place of dynamic and diverse communities. I'd love to get your perspective on why all of us in this political and advocacy space should be putting more emphasis in the fact that our state's greatest strength is actually our diversity.
And I believe that. Of course, the numbers, and I don't know how to do the numbers. What I feel, what I see, is that Black and brown populations are growing, and the white one is diminishing. And so you're going to have to get along with us. So why not start now? Texas, as well as the rest of these United States, by the 2050s, I read, are going to have to be in the minority, the whites. Why don't we start now? I'm going to call it diversified. Why don't we start bringing in the jobs so there'll be no homelessness? Why don't we start teaching in our schools the things that we haven't taught about the past? The thing to do is to teach the truth about it so people can have their own decisions. I'm so glad of the Black Lives Matter. I'm so glad if I was younger, I'd be out there with them, because those people are saying enough is enough. We've had Dr. King and the marches that they did, and we thought we were going to do better, and it just hasn't occurred. So we are at a point right now, after the pandemic, and they said we'll get back to normal, but that's not normal, what we've been through. And we need to have a brand new normal. And I'm hoping people understand that this is what normal is going to be like, that we are going to join together to make this a better United States than it's ever been.
I love that. A new vision for normal. Miss Opal, I think that people often tend to draw a distinction between power and service, or between leadership and service. But really, those aren't two different things. Leadership and service can be and are the same thing. And I've often said that if you serve in your community, if you're active in your PTA, if you're active in your church, then you are powerful.
This is true.
And you are a leader. And that leadership is inherently political. And the different styles and the different visions that we as women, and especially as Black women and women of color, bring to service and to the leadership space are so often undervalued, because they might not be seen as the norm in terms of leadership. But in my mind, the differences further prove why we as women, as Black women, are the right ones and the strongest ones for the job. And as two strong Texas women yourselves, what advice do you each have for the women watching and wondering how they can make a difference in their own communities?
Well, I'm of the opinion that each one of us, women or men, can teach one of us. Now, we know the person where we have a job, or where we go to church, or our club meetings, who are not on the same page. And it's our responsibility to change their minds. And their minds can be changed. If people can be taught to hate, they can be taught to love. Don't think it's going to be an easy job. And you're not to quit when somebody makes you angry, but it can be done. And if each one of us teaches one of us, you cannot believe the things that we can make happen together. I just know that if each of us would talk to our senator or our representative and let them know that we want Juneteenth a national holiday, we want to start the dialogue that's going to make us all be able to work on these disparities together. I just know it can be done. The fact that you are willing to look after the children while the mother goes to the store, or if you can help an elderly person cross the street whatever you do is leading up to our being a united front.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that's just an example because you don't seem to need help crossing the street.
Oh.
Same question to you. What's your one piece of advice for folks out there?
Sharing is caring. If you're sharing a story, if you are sharing your skill, all of us have a skill in something. I think about the story of just Juneteenth. It's a story of resilience. It's a story of struggle, but it's a real story. And in sharing that, we can see that we're a part of a legacy. When I look at Miss Opal, I'm like, oh my God, if I could just touch, as they say, the hem of her garment.
Please.
And it's just those stories. And I think all of that is in line with education. And education in a traditional sense is extremely important, I think. But it's also the oral histories that's embedded in our story. And as we pass that along the way, we're educated in a way to know that we're all a part of humanity. And that I love what she said, that we're not really free until everyone is free. And all of that is embedded in the sharing of our stories, the education and passing that along the way. And I think, anything also that involves us understanding ourselves more and caring for ourselves more and being unapologetic about that. Miss Opal is here because she's cared for herself and our story. And I'm very thankful for that.
Oh, youngsters. So you can join us on the 19th with the caravan. Oh, we've got lots of plans. We've got the flag waves and we've got a breakfast of prayer. Now, that's not to be confused with a prayer breakfast where you sit down and eat a lot of food. But the breakfast of prayer is going to be at Broadway Baptist Church. And then there's going to be young people who get together for a whole week, different nationalities, ethnic groups. They learn their different musical songs, and they give a concert afterwards. And empowering you is really what you need to know about, where the people learn how to buy a home, how to repair their credit, how to get health care, what to do about their Social Security. All these things are available, And have you heard me say, I want Juneteenth to be celebrated from the 19th to the 4th of July? We need all of that time. We need every bit of that. I think of the Dallas Fair, or what we have in Fort Worth, the stock show. If we had the time they have to let people know what's available. Juneteenth, I see Juneteenth as that bridge. I just can't help it.
Well, I love it. And y'all, you heard it from Miss Opal. Juneteenth is more than a festival. It's a celebration, a bridge to freedom.
Yes.
And thank you so much for having us here.
Oh, I'm delighted. I am. In fact, whenever young people show up, I'm loving it.
Well, look, I'm going to show up here more often because you keep calling me a young person, and I love it.
Listen, if you're not 94, you're a young person. I guarantee you.
Well, you all heard it here. Happy Juneteenth, everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Gee.
Hi, my name is Beto O'Rourke, and I am a proud Annie's List ally. You just heard from some powerful women about some powerful history when it comes to Juneteenth and the struggle for freedom in Texas and in this country. And I am so honored to be in this fight with you and with people like Miss Opal Lee and Chairwoman Nicole Collier, and for that matter, Royce Brooks in leadership of Annie's List. I am actually in a hotel room right now in Rains County, northeast of Dallas, as we continue to travel the state to try to be part of this fight that you are helping to lead at this moment, to make sure that we have civil rights and voting rights for every Texan in every single part of this state. We know that our state right now makes it harder to vote than any other in the union, and that there's an effort afoot to make it even tougher to register, to cast a ballot, and to participate in our politics. That's why it is so incredibly important to fund the work that Annie's List does. They help to make extraordinary women who are running campaigns for city council, for commissioner's court, for state rep, for US Congress, and beyond that much more competitive as they seek positions of public trust to do the people's work. At the end of the day, that's what we want. Whether we are Republicans or Democrats or independents, we just want to make sure that those who represent our interests are really concerned with us, we the people. And at this moment that our democracy faces its greatest test and greatest threats, at least in the course of our lifetimes, if not the lifetime of this country, I want to make sure that we put good people in power. And that's exactly what Annie's List does day in and day out. So to all who are assembled for this important event that is supporting this incredibly important organization, I want to say thank you to Chairwoman Collier, to Royce, especially to Miss Opal Lee, and to Carla Braley, and so many others who've inspired so many of us over the years as we continue this important work. Please stay safe, keep the faith, and never give up the fight.